Hello, all you scaredy cats and kittens, and welcome to the Two Scaredy Cats podcast, where we talk about all things strange, unusual, and paranormal. We're your hostess with the mostest. I'm Stacy.
And I'm Kara.
So, Kara, did you do anything this past couple since we talked last, or go anywhere? I know we went on a family vacation. So, where'd you go?
I've been a lot of places since. I also went to Canada, where you guys also went.
Mm-hmm.
I think we talked about how we were going to Canada.
Right.
On the last episode.
But we weren't sure if we were going to overlap, because you were going to a different part than we were heading to.
Yeah.
So how was your trip?
It was fine. It was normal. The drive was really long and kind of sucked, I'm not going to lie.
And now you went through Detroit, correct?
On the way up, we did.
Okay.
I feel like, so, did they even check your Arrive Canada thing when you went?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were pretty...
They did not at all. He literally just took our passports and our vaccine cards, asked us, like, a few questions, and that was it. And then he let us go. He was like, I don't need that. And we were like, what the
that's
heck?
Weird. Because
it was weird.
Where we came through, they didn't ask for our vaccine cards at all. They did ask for our passports, and they made us roll down the back window so they could see Sam. And then they were just like, and Dad gave them the Air Canada thing, and they were like, okay. And then asked us a couple questions, why are you coming here, to make sure we weren't like, drug mules or, something weird like that. But that was it.
Yeah, we were like, we have costumes in the back, and we're going to an anime convention. So they were like, what the heck? We did have some, like, awkward moments at the border, and I thought I was going to strangle Savannah, because they were like... You guys
didn't have anything strange, like, stick it in the back that they could see, did you?
But listen, right. The guy was like, hey, do you guys have any marijuana products? I think that's what he said, marijuana products, and then Savannah was like, what? And, like, because she didn't understand what he said. Because this guy, God. Like, and he didn't stare, he would not look at us. He just stared into his little thing, and he was, like, mumbling the entire time. So Savannah couldn't hear him. Which I'm like, okay, dude. You could just tell that he did not care at all.
Want to be there, yep.
He was just done, which I was like, oh, God, please don't, like, flag us or anything. And, like, or, like, any marijuana products. And then she was like, what? And she thought he said, oh, cannabis products is what he said. And she thought he said Canada products.
Uh-huh.
So she was like, what do you mean by Canada products? And he's like, weed. He starts screaming, like, weed.
Oh, my God.
Like, marijuana. That kind of stuff. Do you have any of it? And she was like, no. And I was like, oh, my God, Savannah. Because I'm just sitting there, I want to say no, but I don't want to speak.
Yeah, no, like, only one person needs to speak for the car. Otherwise, that'll make it weird, and then they'll, like, flag
That's
you.
why I was like, I'm like, Savannah.
Yeah, the person in front of us when we were coming back home to the United States got flagged, and they had to pull over. It took, that line was going so slow that Dad jumped out of the line that we were originally in and moved over to the next one because they told those people to go over. Yep, they moved them over, and they were going to search the car. So I don't know what was going on with that car.
Yeah, they did that on our way across, back over the border to America. Because Savannah had freaking red contacts. Lenses.
Oh my God.
So then the guy he was like, are those contacts? And she was like, oh yeah.
Oh man.
I was like, God damn it, Savannah. So Savannah only drove in Canada since it was her car. We didn't want to, like, get in trouble.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, what the rules are in Canada so she only drove in there, and I mainly drove us when we came back through America or whatever.
Oh, ours was
how did yours
traumatic,
go?
to say the least. When we went to Toronto, I don't think we ever told you this, but when we were, so we decided that we were going to go into downtown Toronto for the day, which was fine. But we did not stay, like, in Toronto. We stayed in a suburb outside of Toronto. And if anybody doesn't know this or not, Toronto has commuter trains that will take you from, different parts of the outlying boundaries and countries or cities and that, and take you to downtown Toronto. So we got one in this town called Hamilton, which was where we had been staying. And when we first got there to get onto the train, it wasn't very well, like it wasn't explained very well how this all works. So we caught a train, and we actually caught a bus, the first time, but the bus and the trains are at the same station. While we were there was some dude strung out on who knows what, all the way down at the end where we had to go to get onto the bus. And it was so bad that one of the guys that worked at the train station there was like talking to us and told us not to go down there because he's crazy and that sometimes he'll like yell at people and stuff. And I'm thinking, oh my Lord, this is all we need. So, and he was also like, and he's like, and I asked, well, I have to go to the bathroom. And he's like, yeah, go on in. So I go into the bathroom and there's like blue lights in the bath. There's no like regular lights in there. It's all blue lights. And I was like, this is bizarre. So I came out and I was like telling Dad, I'm like, there's blue lights in the bathroom. What is going on? I don't understand. I thought maybe they were cleaning it or something. I'm like, what is going on? And Dad's like, no, that's for all the druggies because they can't see their veins with the blue lights. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, you never heard of it? I'm like, no, I've never heard of that. So then we're still talking to the guy that works for the bus train station. And he goes, oh yeah. He goes, how was the bathroom? Are you okay? And I'm like, why are you asking me this? And he's like, well, because we have problems in there. And I'm thinking, oh my Lord, where are we? What is going on in this place? So we get on the bus and we take it to downtown Toronto. So we get there, we hang out. Well, what nobody bothered to tell us was we couldn't catch a bus back because they shut down all the buses during rush hour and you can only do trains during certain hours during rush hour. Yeah, so we didn't know this. And we had bought a bus pass, like a round trip bus pass, so we could go there and come back, okay? So we're like freaking out. I thought for sure we're going to like die in this city and we're going to be stuck there and never get home because it was like late and we couldn't find a way to get back.
Do you not Uber? Did you not try Ubering?
No, because we were 30 minutes away at this time. Do you know how much that would have cost us in Canadian money?
I mean, sure, but
a lot. And no, here's the other thing. I don't know if you know this or not. Toronto is not an Uber city. They will not. In fact, all the taxi drivers there are band together, and they won't let Ubers in because we did try to find an Uber to get home.
Frick? That's scary.
Yeah, you didn't. Yeah. Just so you know, in case you ever go there and you're like, oh, I'll just take an Uber and zip across town. You can't. It's taxis only. There is no Ubers.
Well, thank God me and Savannah drove her car in there.
I know.
Guess you guys should have drove like we did.
I know, right? Well, no, that place is scary.
I mean, it was scary driving. I'm not going to lie.
We thought we were being smart and taking the train. Yeah, well.
Yeah, but, well, we had the pro strat because we had to deal with some crazy people, too.
So
we went to go get my inappropriate waffles. Dude, it was so awkward. Like, when I went to get them, the guy would, like, just, like, bring them up to my face, and he would just, like, bounce it around and be like, oh, you want to take a bite? And I was like, this is so awkward. Oh. I was like, I'm so embarrassed.
Oh, my God.
And they would, like, drizzle, so like, the chocolate.
And creepy,
it was an experience. Wow. It was really good tasting, though, but,
oh, wow.
That's definitely what I would call it, an experience.
That sounds like an experience. So we didn't get home to the hotel that night. We tried to leave at like, I guess it was like around 5 o'clock. We didn't end up getting home until 9 o'clock that night because we had to we ended up taking a train, and then we didn't know how to catch the train because it's so weird there. Like there's like a platform for the train, like in Harry Potter and all that, and you had to go up to get to the platform, and we were all the way down on a different side of the station. It was insane. And the only reason why we even made it to the train and got to where we needed was because Sam was playing Pokemon Go, and they actually had everything in there, like the whole thing was mapped out. So Sam was leading us around with the Pokemon map to save us. Yes.
Pokemon Go.
So if you're ever in Toronto and you're stuck and you don't know where you are, you can use the Pokemon Go map to get you to where you need to go. It works. Oh my God. Yeah, it was an experience. Let me tell you. Oh. But yeah, other than that though, we went to Niagara Falls also, and that was really awesome. We had a hotel that sat right on the edge where the falls was. So it was really neat. We got to wake up every morning and see the falls and stuff. That was really cool. I really liked that part. We had a much more enjoyable, relaxing time in Niagara Falls than the Toronto part.
So if you would go back, would you not go to Toronto?
Canada was nice. I don't think I'm good.
I don't think you would go back.
I'm good. I've seen Toronto. I'm good for quite a while.
That's funny.
I mean, if I had somebody with me that knew what they were doing, and nobody would there was a lot of French speaking people there, which we kind of knew that going in, but didn't realize how many people there spoke French. And it was hard to find anybody that spoke English that could help us. It was really weird.
Wants to go to a convention up in Montreal, and I'm like, that is super French area.
Oh, that is that's really big French.
She's like, well, my friend knows French. I'm like, okay. That's not gonna help us.
Yeah. Okay.
If one person can speak French.
Yep. Because their French is different. It's not this regular French that you would speak it's a different dialect of it.
Sure
so. But anyway. All right, so I guess I go first today. So today I'm going to be talking about the town of Utopia, Ohio. So Utopia, Ohio came about from the ideas of a gentleman by the name of Charles Fourier, who was a French philosopher who believed that cooperation was key to a successful society. And his followers decided that they were going to create this communal society with their families in Ohio. So they came to this town. They decided to name it Utopia because, what Utopia means. Yeah. So people, during this time, too, we got to remember, this was during a lot of turmoil was going on in the United States at this time. And so the families would come, they would pay $25 fee, and this fee basically got you were able to join the community, you were given a parcel of land, and you were also given a house for $25. I don't think that's too bad of a deal.
That sounds like a nice deal. I want to go live there.
Yeah, well, things didn't go as
I'm sure
they thought things were going to go. So this was the first attempt of somebody trying to do some type of community experiment on this property. It lasted 2 years, but because of everybody's desire to be individuals instead of working together, as a group and, sharing of everything, people didn't like that. And eventually people would rather have individualism than have to share. So that didn't work out. So then we got the next group that came through, and this was a group of spiritualists, and they were led by the man by the name of John Waddles. And in case you don't know, spiritualists believe that the dead could communicate with us by communicating in different ways. Like they'll have seances, and the spirits will talk to them. They through clairvoyancy or whatever. So they believe that the spirits would talk to them and tell them what to do and how to build this utopia that they were going to have. So, and that group, something major happened to that group, but we're going to come back to that because that's where most of my story about Utopia lies in. So after the spiritualists left, because things didn't go so well for them either, we have another group that came through. And the final group actually gets credit for the name of the town of Utopia. And the gentleman that founded this town was a guy by the name of Josiah Warren. And he believed, so each individual had their own rights and they didn't have to listen to the hierarchy. And this made him the first anarchist and the father of anarchy. So his utopia was this labor-based economy where the property was owned by everyone, but the goods that they grew and all that were paid for in hours worked. So he opened up a store on this property, and they called it a an hours store. So depending upon how many hours you worked, you could get say a bundle of corn for 1 hour's worth of work, which is 14 heads of corn or something like that. And that's the way his store worked out. Now, a lot of people, but this community was weird. It was like a gated community, and the only way for anybody to join his particular community was by invitation only. So as the years went on, or as the months went on, people didn't want to share, their wealth of stuff with other people. They kept it a very close-knit community, and they never really expanded too much. They got into a big fight with the other people that were surrounding them, and the people that surrounded them didn't like that they were, that's the way they were choosing to live. So they wouldn't let them expand out into the further reaches of the town there. So they basically ran them away. So that pretty much went to the wayside. So back to the second, and then it remained vacant for years and has been. But the part that we're more interested in is the John Waltles part, the guy that was the spiritualist. The spiritualism in the United States started by the claims of the three Fox sisters in New York. Soon others emerged as mediums, and mediums are individuals that can talk to the spirits, and they would do this through a process called like rapping, and that's where they would like rap on the table and ask a question and tell the spirit, one time on the, one rap on the table means yes and two means no and stuff like that.
Like knocking? Isn't that also called knocking?
Yeah, kind of like knocking, but they call it rapping. Yeah, they call it rapping. And then there was other phenomenon that would happen while they were holding their seances. So they were asking all these questions when they would hold these seances, about their community and, what should we do? Should we do this? Should we do that? And the spirits would communicate with them and tell them what to do. The movement spread during the 1850s to the United States and Europe, and even had a lot of the same qualities as a religion. And that's why a lot of people liked joining it, because, at the time, being part of a religious thing was like very big back then, and so people thought, hey, spiritualism is this new kind of cool thing, and we want to join that and start practicing that. So one of the most notable groups that practiced spirit communication, which I thought was very interesting, is the Shakers. Did you know that? The Shakers, who are kind of like Quakers, and they're kind of like almost like modern day pilgrims, kind of, if you think of it that way. So the Shakers started in 1837, and it all started when they had a revival, and specially gifted members of their church would speak on behalf of and communicate with the dead. So they were like having these, talks with the dead and all that. And so that's kind of how the Shakers got started into all that. Well, there was one particular member of the Shakers that had this special gift, and his name was none other than John Wattles, which is the guy that formed a spiritualist community that ended up in Utopia. So in 1833, John and his brother came to Cincinnati to study under the Reverend Lyman Beecher, who, by the way, this is really fascinating. He is the father of none other than abolitionist writer Harriet Beecher Stowe. So they were basically under the tutelage of Harriet Beecher Stowe's dad. And because of that, John became a big person against slavery and all that kind of stuff. In fact, he had like freed slaves a lot of times on his property and in these little communities that he started. So Waters became immersed in all kinds of different reform movements, including women's suffrage, diet reform, abolition, and later a thing called communitarianism. So he was like really big into all these different kinds of movements. He's kind of like, I guess you would like like what we would refer to today as a hippie. He was kind of like into, he's kind of like into all that kind of stuff. Anything that's kind of on the fringes of society kind of thing. He kind of liked all that. So him and his wife, kind of new. Yes, exactly. I mean, spiritualism is basically, new age stuff. So John and his wife Esther worked to establish many reform communities in Ohio, but most of them failed. So eventually they decided that they were going to start this new community in Utopia. So Waters and his associates claimed that they received ideas directly from the spirit world by means of clairvoyancy. So him and his little followers would get together, and they would have these meetings in a building on the property. And, during these meetings, they would talk to the spirits, so they claimed. And apparently the spirits forgot to give him an important piece of information. So Waters and his followers decided that there was a large brick building on the property that they called the community building, and it was built when the other guy before him had his little thing going on. And he decided that he didn't like it being in the middle of the center of the town, that he wanted to move it to the edge of the Ohio River on the banks. They dismantled this whole building brick by brick, and they rebuilt it right next to the banks of the Ohio River.
Why?
Because he, I don't know. And that's the weird thing. Nobody knows why he decided to do that, because everybody in town kept telling him, this is a bad idea. You do realize that you're right next to a river, and it does flood, and it will flood, it floods.
Or erosion will happen, and the river will get wider.
Exactly. So they move it, okay? And we're bumping up right into December, and they're freaking out because, it's close to winter, and they don't have any place to live, and this is like their house where some of the families are gonna be living in. So they got it built, like, right before winter. I mean, they finished this thing in, like, December, okay?
Wow.
And the problem was that along with that not only was the building made very hastily, that they moved it brick by brick and built it right next to the edge of the banks of the river, but also it had a large number of windows in this property, in this building, okay, this brick building. And when you have all those windows and stuff, it makes the structure more kind of unstable. So when the water levels rose on December 13th, 1847, and this is like one of the biggest floods that the Ohio River had, by the way. Yeah, the structure gave way, as you can imagine, because, they didn't build it the way they should have. They cut some corners.
Why did they even build it by the river?
I know, right? That's what everybody wants to know.
They built it somewhere else, and they're like, just kidding, let's move it right by the river.
So, and not only that, they moved this building, but right next to the river. Now, the story goes that apparently while this flood was happening, they decided to have a dance. The waters had risen so high, like a couple days before this even, like before the flood happened, that they had to take a riverboat, okay? And they were busing people that lived there in that house structure from the edge, from wherever the water had not, touched yet, to taking a riverboat across the river to get to their property. And they were like, busing them in on ferry boats. So they were having a dance that night. Okay, so they didn't know what was going on, and it happened at nighttime, so nobody could see. And the structure, basically, it ended up caving in on people, and the whole building just collapsed.
Oh my god, did they all die?
Well, almost all of them did. 17 people died. Yeah. John and his wife, though, survived, go figure.
What?
And, yeah.
That's fucked up, but they survived, even though they so badly wanted to do that.
I know. So they survived, and they regrouped and attempted to rebuild the building again, okay? But unfortunately, the river continued to plague them with all kinds of troubles. And then it gets better. A tornado, and this is all within the same year. A tornado comes through and destroys several of the buildings and trees that were around the area, okay? And then, in May of that year of 1948, the group's common building burned to the ground because it got on fire, and they don't know how.
Wow.
So after all these additional tragedies that happened, the Waddles decided that, Utopia is not for them, and they were not meant to have, this awesome lifestyle. And it's time for them to move on and go someplace else. So they left for Kansas. But the funniest thing is, when they left to go to Kansas, they tried to start another, reform community in Kansas. I know.
Why don't they get a clue?
Right? Don't we learn from our mistakes?
Like, I think it could have worked, but they clearly didn't know what they were doing.
No. And that's the problem. When you get, like, people all have their own ideas in there. I mean, they were kind of on the same plate at the beginning of it, but as time went on, you know how that is. People see other things and they get ideas. So, in 1975, a dredging operation was digging, right in that area where Utopia is. And they actually brought up some of the bricks from the main building that got destroyed in the flood. So where all these people, where a horrific accident happened, got disturbed by people, dredging the waters of the Ohio River. So it's said when the water is very low, you can actually see the original foundation where this structure was that they had moved, right next to the edge of the river. People have actually gone there. They said that the water's so murky, it was too hard to actually see they went there when the water table was really low. They said it was very hard to see the structure because of how murky the water was. Today, the riverbank where it happened is said to be haunted by the spiritualist who died in the flood. Residents and people that go there to ghost hunt have seen full-body apparitions of people walking out of the water. There have been strange lights that have been seen hovering in the area near where the flood happened and all those people lost their lives. They'll see strange lights floating around out in the water or in that general area. Now, just a real quick side note here, there is actually, they built an underground church, like across the road from where, their actual area was, and it was said that they did like ritualistic things in the church. Nobody knows what that means or what that entails or was. But you can actually, that building still exists. There's a lady that I found out that owns it, that lives in the town, and she'll let you go down there and check it out.
Really?
And people have like heard disembodied voices and stuff.
That's
like
creepy.
They'll hear like a lady talking.
Yeah.
They've heard like people laughing, and you can hear people like music, like how like they were dancing and all that.
Oh yeah.
They say you can hear music and stuff. So it's not that far away from Cincinnati here. It's only 40 minutes away, and it's on 52. So it's a really beautiful drive because you get to see the Ohio River the whole way.
Yeah.
Basically, the towns there, you can go visit it. There's only 150 people that live there. That most of the structures are gone that were there when it was all these different reform groups that were, trying to make their utopia there. But there's a sign there that tells you, where it was. And there's also, like I said, the underground church is still there. And if you talk to the lady that owns it, she has been known to let people go down there and check it out. So it's like only 40 minutes away from here.
It's wild.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of that.
I've never heard of it, which is crazy because, I would have thought.
I would think because we lived on the river, Ohio River.
Right. We would have heard something about it, but never heard
apparently
anything
not.
about it. Yeah. But anyway, I thought it was kind of cool. It had a tie to Harriet Beecher Stowe and all that, though, too. That was kind of cool. So what do you got?
My story, we're gonna get a little buck wild.
Okay.
There's a lot. Well, we're going to talk about Oak Island. Which I didn't know this. I mean, I feel like I probably knew this, but I didn't know it. It's actually in Canada. So I thought.
Wait a minute. Are you really serious? I didn't know that either.
Yes, it's in Canada.
Oh, I
that's
thought
why
it was here
like,
in America.
oh, that's kind of fitting since we were. No, it's in Canada.
Right.
I thought so too. I thought
it was
in
like
America.
off of Virginia.
I thought it was like by Maine or something.
I thought it was in Virginia. I didn't know it was in Canada. Oh, that's interesting.
No, it's in Canada.
Huh.
Yeah. Well, now you know, because I thought the same thing. I thought it was somewhere in America.
Right. So did I.
Because. Funny enough, I was watching like the new show. Most of what I'm covering is not anything to deal with the TV show, but on the show, they had issues to film the new season because of COVID, because they couldn't go across the border because the people who own it now are in Michigan and they couldn't get across for the filming.
Oh, that's true.
During COVID. So the newest season, they talk about that a lot in the beginning. So I was just I watched a few episodes after I did my research because I was like, oh, I should probably see what the new show is about.
The new show, I've watched a couple, like Jake was really big into it for a while there. I watched episodes with him, yeah. It's interesting, like, how they keep drilling down, like they're trying to find the money that's supposedly the gold coins that were buried there by the Freemasons when they were in the
well,
Illuminati.
We're gonna find out. Is it really the Freemasons?
Okay.
We don't know. There's some crazy
I know.
conspiracy. Listen, we're gonna go into a bunch of crazy stuff because some of the theories on what is down there, I was like, I had never heard this before.
Okay, well, let's
go.
So
you may be thinking to yourself, what is Oak Island? Because I thought that too. Well, it's a 140-acre island located on the south shore of Nova Scotia, Canada.
Okay.
So it's in Nova Scotia, so it's like in the air.
Yeah, way up there, yeah.
It's like pretty up. It's like not as habitable areas from what I can tell. So Oak Island is suspected to be the home of Captain Kidd's treasure. There's more.
Oh, okay.
Edward Blackbeard's treasure.
Ooh, Blackbeard's treasure? Hello.
Yes. Those secret society, the Freemasons, and the Knights Templar.
Oh, yeah. All of it.
Yeah,
Sounds
there's
good.
all of it. Apparently,
Wow.
everyone thinks that all of these places are all in this one place, and I'm like, clearly, one of them can't be.
Yeah.
Speaking of Blackbeard, have you been watching that one TV show about him?
Which one?
On HBO, you should watch it, because I know you have HBO.
Yeah, what is it called?
Our Flag Means Death.
Oh, is that what that's about? I was like,
it's about Blackbeard.
Oh, I have to watch it.
You should watch it.
Okay.
It's very fruity.
Okay.
Very fruity and good. You would like it, though. It's pretty funny. Okay.
Right.
Anyways, but I thought it was funny because I was like, Blackbeard, that's literally the Blackbeard that's in that TV. I mean, I think it's like a historical.
I know what you mean, yes.
You know what I'm talking about.
I gotcha, yeah.
But anyways. So there is also speculation that Francis Bacon buried the original Shakespeare manuscripts there.
Oh, okay.
So, and the island is actually one of the only areas in that like portion that was covered in red oak trees, which I think might be where they got like the name Oak.
The name Oak Island.
Island,
oh, that makes sense.
because it had a bunch of red, like the oak trees. I don't think they're there anymore, but they were originally. So here's where the legend begins. In 1795, Daniel McGuinness noticed some strange lights coming from Oak Island at night. So he decided to row across the bay area to investigate the lights. With two of his friends, Anthony Vaughn and John Smith, they started investigating the lights, and they find a ship's block and tackle which were hanging from a tree. Underneath of it, they found strange depression in the ground, looking like someone had freshly buried something there. And there were rumors in the area of pirate activity. Remember how we were talking about pirates earlier? Mm-hmm. So the boys returned to the next day to dig in the spot. So while they were digging, when they got about 10 feet down, they found a row of logs. Just placed there. Obviously someone buried them. They removed them and they kept going, and every 10 feet they would run into another thing of logs. Just that.
Weird.
Yeah.
So were they booby traps or what were they?
We'll get to it because it gets a little crazy. And so then they spent the next 9 years of their life digging. Dear
Lord, that's crazy.
To get 90 feet. So they hit about 90 feet down in 1804. Mm-hmm. And they find embedded in the wood planks, there's a strange symbol on the slab. There's a slab of I think it was granite, but it might be some sort of stone. And they found that, and then when they lifted the stone up, all of a sudden it started flooding. The entire tunnel started flooding with seawater.
Oh. Huh.
So it is booby trapped.
Yep.
So supposedly.
Right. So that would play into the whole pirate thing because
and
they
so
like to do that.
that is how it is flooded. That's why it's flooded today.
Oh,
it's because they opened that slab.
Oh, okay.
And because of that, it is now always flooded, and that's an issue. Yeah. Even today, they have issues with that flooding because of those, because they lifted it and they triggered the booby
because
trap.
that's where they've been trying to dig down to find.
Yes,
down
it's
there.
called. Yeah, that will soon be called what is called the money pit.
Okay.
Obviously, because people have sunk so much money trying to get to it, but also people think there's money at the bottom.
Okay.
So the stone actually had, they were able to decipher it, which there's a few different deciphers, but in English, they think it says 40 feet below, 2 million pounds is buried.
Oh, wow.
Some question if it should be translated in English, since the pirates, they traveled from all over, and they might not be speaking English, could be speaking French.
True, right.
Spanish, whatever is
whatever
around
language they were coming, whatever country they were coming from.
Portuguese, I think, was one they mentioned.
Yep.
So some people believe it might actually be a curse or instructions on how to stop the booby trap. But we don't know, because it was very bizarre symbols, and no one could actually get an exact transfer. But yeah, like we said, the flooding's been a huge issue even today for all of the treasure hunters now. So in 1861, a man was burned alive when a boiler exploded when digging in the money pit. Ooh. So there's been a lot of deaths on the island, 6 to be in total. In 1897, Menard Kaiser would become the second victim of the island. He fell to his death in a well after the bucket came loose, and he went down into the pit to like retie the thing because they were like pulling the water out from it. And the rope he was hanging from snapped under the pressure, and he fell to his death. So that's kind of an L for that guy.
Yep.
And then a lot of the people that were working on the pit at that time just up and quit because there was a lot of paranoia going on and superstition because of the curse of Oak Island. So there was like a pretty big stop in like the digging after that death. And I think a lot of it stopped until it started back up in 1969 when Oak Island owner Fred Nolan discovered a ship. He actually discovered a ship was buried in the swamp area. There's like a swamp area in between.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
In the middle of the island. Yes. So, and then they started pulling parts of a Spanish ship out of the swamp, and then they were like, oh, okay, this is definitely confirms our belief. Mm-hmm. And then they also believe that Oak Island, it was actually originally two separate islands, and that swamp area is man-made.
Interesting.
Because they tried to hide the ship. So, because they tested, like, obviously nowadays they can do this, they were able to, like, test the makeup of the island or whatever.
The swale and all that.
And there were two different like rocks. Like I think one was like mainly granite, and the other one was a different one. So they're like, we think that this might be like the swamp was man-made, and they were actually originally two separate islands. It was common pirate practice to bury someone alive with the treasure, so the spirit could curse and haunt the treasure. So people think that they might have buried the slaves they had along with the treasure to like to haunt the island. Make the curse worse.
Johnny Depp vibes here and Pirates of the Caribbean.
Right. Yeah. So Robert Restall got involved after he read in a magazine article about Oak Island. And that's when in the 1900s is when it started picking back up. And Robert, while looking down the shaft at one point, he fell down. And his son, Bobby, saw him fall, so he went in after him.
Oh my goodness.
Carl Gracer also went in.
Oh, jeez.
Cyril Hiltzer went in. Andrew Demont and Leonard Kaiser also followed them down.
Oh my goodness.
Only 2 were able to come out alive.
Oh my gosh.
That was 4 more deaths added to the total.
Wow. That is crazy.
Yeah. There's actually like a little, with all of the names of the people that died on Oak
like
Island.
A plaque or something somewhere?
Yeah, like a little plaque, and as more people died, they just add it, which is kind of
messed up. Kind of weird.
And so now there is a rumor being spread that one more person had to die before the treasure would ever be found.
So somebody tried...
Because they said that 7 people had to die, apparently.
Oh my gosh.
That was the special number.
So don't even tell me somebody tried to kill somebody to get to the 7.
No.
Oh, okay.
Luckily, no. It's still at 6 today.
Okay.
But you never know, because they're currently working on it, so who freaking knows?
Huh.
In October 2017, a cross is found on the island, suspected to be from the 1200s to 1600s, which would lead that to be the Knights Templar.
Yep.
So that's where we get... Now this is where people are suspecting it might be the Knights Templar. And they actually suspect that it could be the Ark of the Covenant that is buried there.
What? That's crazy.
That's what I said. I was like, that's weird.
That's kind of crazy.
Because apparently the cross is like... It has to do something with where the Knights Templar were being sacrificed at a prison or something. Yeah. And so I don't know how that ended up to be...
Interesting.
That it was the Ark of the Covenant.
Right.
But it is what it is.
Interesting.
So in 1973, while using dowsing rods on the island, Dan Hensky says he was overcome with a strange sensation. And then Dan claims that he was possessed by a spirit long dead. Specifically a dead priest, he said.
Oh, okay.
And then he falls down and he feels like he is experiencing death.
Huh.
And he can tell that that priest apparently died by having his throat slit. Because that's what it felt like to him.
Oh, goodness.
And a lot of people are like,
yeah, that sounds strange. Pretty weird, yeah.
There's some strange, like, stories, too, that have been going on the island. Fred Nolan believed the ravens on the island were possessed by souls of the former slaves that were used by the pirates.
Okay.
I told you it gets a
That's
little
kind of weird. Yeah.
interesting. And there's also were multiple reports of a dog that would roam around the island with red glowing
Ooh,
eyes.
dog man.
Like there were multiple, like so cryptid
Really?
spotted.
Yeah. Huh.
And there is like Bermuda Triangle kind of levels of bizarre. So there's actually 2 other islands right next to Bermuda Triangle, and in that like cross area, boats have and like other technology issues have been reported.
Huh.
And I didn't know this, but there was actually a U.S. president who invested in the Oak Island and has been there.
Oh, yeah?
And it was Franklin Roosevelt.
Really? Interesting. Huh.
Yeah, so he has been there.
But wait, you know what? That plays, though, into the theory that he was in the Freemasons. You know that, right?
Maybe that's where we get the Freemason part. Because I was like, nothing I saw was... I'm not sure where the Freemason part came in.
Roosevelt was one of the Freemasons, so maybe that's where they're getting.
Maybe that's why they thought it was.
Angle, yeah.
But I thought it was interesting, and apparently Edgar Allan Poe wrote about. He wrote about Captain Kidd's treasure.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah, that was another weird
connection to the whole thing.
Whole thing.
Interesting.
About one of the possible treasures. But yeah, that was kind of like the old legends of before the TV show. I didn't really touch any of the TV show because there's plenty of that to unpack but I thought it was interesting. Like I there was some stuff I didn't know about the island too.
Yeah, I didn't realize pirates hung out there. I mean, I know they
apparently
talked
in
about
that
it a
area
little bit on the show.
It's very popular. Yeah, I don't think the show really goes into a lot of the
none of the
pirate
they're
theories.
Just mainly looking, right?
They're looking for like it's kind of like the Skinwalker Ranch show.
Yeah,
you know, like where they just kind of whatever they can find, like touch on. Anything else you think of?
that's it for this week.
All right. Well, if you enjoyed our podcast today, follow us on Instagram at 2 Scaredy Cats Podcast. And please be sure to leave a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It really helps the show get discovered. And tune in 2 weeks for a new episode. And to all our scaredy cats and kittens out there, remember, curiosity didn't kill these 2 scaredy cats.